Hello and welcome back to Everything Boats with Captain Franklin here, where we discuss boats and boating, from maintenance and repairs to seamanship and safety, as well as everything in between. This podcast is a companion to my YouTube channel of the same name, so if you like and find it useful, be sure to subscribe and please check out my YouTube channel as well, where you'll find hundreds of informative videos on pretty much every boating topic imaginable. Today we're going to be discussing how to buy a better used boat. Searching out a bargain seems to be written in the collective human DNA. Beating the printed price is the modern substitute for bringing down that woolly mammoth and feeding the family for a month. But all too often, the bottom line becomes the end-all be-all of the hunt. Some things cost less for a reason, and sometimes these reasons outweigh the supposed good deal. Here's a look at 6 pitfalls that can turn your dream boat into the proverbial hole in the water. Pitfall number 1, engine problems. Engines are the single most expensive piece of gear on board. A hard lesson to learn after purchasing that deal of a lifetime and finding out that a rebuild or replacement is required. Warning signs. Start by looking for obvious problems such as leaks, excessive rust, broken components, and the like. Check coolant level and properties for closed systems. Lack of antifreeze should raise red flags, possible leaks, as should coolant with a rusty color or an unusual amount of solids. Pull the dipstick and check the oil. A slightly low level may be okay, but a higher than normal level could be a sign of trouble, especially if the oil is milky or frothy, an indication water, antifreeze, or transmission fluid is present, which could mean anything from blown gaskets to a cracked block. Smell the oil. Burnt smelling oil is an indication of overheating. Then wipe the dipstick on a clean white cloth or napkin. Oil that's thick initially but then starts to spread out over the cloth is an indication of fuel contamination. How difficult is the engine to start? Depending on the engine, whether it's gas or diesel, hard starting could be caused by anything from weak batteries and faulty plugs to bad fuel pumps. How does the engine sound? Does it run smoothly at idle and under load, or does it idle unevenly and stall out when placed in the gear? Rough running can be caused by anything from clogged fuel filters to compression problems, while engines idling at more than 800 RPM may have been set high to mask idling problems. Verify proper oil pressure and operating temperature. Low oil pressure could be due to anything from faulty oil pumps to cam bearing failure. High water temperatures may be something as simple as a bad impeller, but could also be caused by corroded manifolds or exhaust risers. Read the smoke signals. A well-maintained engine may smoke when initially cranked or while idling, but not when warmed up or under load. Smoke color can also provide an indication of problems. Blue for burning oil, black for incomplete combustion, and the like. Fight or flight mechanism here. Have the engine surveyed by a competent marine mechanic, then discuss repair options and cost. Remember that hour meters mean nothing, as they can be easily swapped out by an unscrupulous seller, and that an owner should eagerly provide invoices if claiming overhauls of major work that's been done on the engine. When people spend money on a boat, they're going to be happy to show you these invoices. Look at what these robbers charged me to do this, right? If they can't provide you with invoices for work that they claim has been done, then lacking the documentation, we assume nothing's been done. Engines are a big ticket item, so always weigh the cost of the repair or replacement of the engine versus simply walking away and finding a boat that doesn't need a new engine. Fiberglass hull blisters. While steel hulls rust and wood hulls rot, it's blisters that make a fiberglass boat owner's hair stand on end. The Cliff Notes version of how blisters form is simple. Water-soluble chemicals inside the laminate exert an osmotic pull on water molecules outside the hull, drawing them through the gel coat. Once inside, the water molecules and soluble chemicals join to create a solution with larger molecules that are unable to pass back through the gel coat. As water molecules continue to enter, pressure increases to the point that the gel coat is pushed outward, forming a blister. Some makes and models seem to be more susceptible to blistering than others, presumably due to factors ranging from resin use to layup schedules. But all boats are at some risk. Location also plays a factor. Relocating a vessel from cool to tropical waters, from fresh to salt, etc., could cause blisters where there were none previously. Warning signs. The best time to spot blisters is just after the boat is hauled, preferably after the hull has been power washed and is still wet. Blisters can depressurize in a matter of hours once the vessel is hauled, minutes in some cases, making them all but impossible to spot. Something to consider if inspecting a boat that's been hauled for a while. Blisters will typically appear as circular bumps or dome-like protrusions while sighting along the hull. Sometimes water trapped between the bottom paint and gel coat forms bumps that can be mistaken for blisters. With the owner's permission, try pressing a suspected blister with a rubber-gloved finger. Be sure to wear goggles as blisters can be under considerable pressure. If the fluid that comes out has a chemical styrene smell, chances are it's a blister. Fight or flight. Although hull blisters and terminal cancer are often viewed with the same level of dread, finding one or two blisters on an older vessel is no more serious than an occasional gouge to the hull. In this case, spot treatment of individual blisters as they occur, grinding them out to good material, barrier coating, and then filling it and fairing it with a suitable epoxy mixture will normally sufficed. Far worse is the dreaded pimple rash or boat pox, where the entire bottom is covered with hundreds or thousands of blisters. Repairs in this case involve removal of the entire gel coat and skin out mat to good laminate, and then adding additional laminate to return the hull to original strength. This is an expensive repair that many yards will gladly perform, but rarely guarantee will prevent future blister formation. Finally, be aware that the presence of blisters may very well have a negative impact on a vessel's resale value, depending on a potential buyer's perception of blisters. Pitfall number 3, wet and delaminated decks. Water intrusion into core decking likely causes more boat damage every year than sinkings, groundings, and fires combined. Core construction simply means that you've got an inner and outer layer of fiberglass sandwiching some material in between them. This could be ingrain balsa, plywood, or maybe one of the more high-tech foam variations. The prime directive with core construction is keeping water out, particularly with balsa or plywood. Wet coring can rot, allowing the core deck to separate, drastically reducing structural integrity. Long-term water exposure causes problem with foam core decks as well. Core separation, freeze damage, and even disintegration in some cases. Warning signs. The first step, literally, in finding deck problems can be as simple as walking on them. Soft spots, oil canning or flexing, or even water squishing from deck fittings while you walk on them are all indicators of potentially expensive repairs. Drips and brownish stains below decks are also common signs of water-soaked decks and rotting core. Sound out decks by tapping on them with a small plastic-headed hammer or the end of a screwdriver handle. Sharp, crisp sounds while tapping are what you want, while dull thuds can be an indication of delamination. Moisture meters are also an excellent tool for sniffing out soggy decks. Fight or flight. While repair costs will be directly related to the size of the delaminated area, cutting open a deck for core replacement is never cheap. If a deck flexes like the moonwalk you rented for Junior's birthday, run or get ready to lay out some serious cash. Pitfall number 4, structural issues. Fractured bulkheads, loose fiberglass tabbing, or cracked floors and stringers, the internal supportive gridwork of the hull, are all common signs of excessive hull flexing and stress overload. Warning signs, start by accessing as much of the interior hull and support structure as possible. Look for rot, broken bulkhead tabbing, and fractured fiberglass where stringers and floors meet. Pay in particular attention to those that provide support for the engine. A strong flashlight and an inspection mirror are good tools to have while looking for damage. A small digital camera or your phone will also be a big help. Stick it in hard to access areas and snap pictures in all directions for review later. Fight or flight. While repairs may seem pretty straightforward, multiple sightings of broken tabbing and cracked stringers or floors should be viewed as an indication of much more serious issues, from a weakly built hull to repairing projects that place excessive stress on the boat due to increases in engine weight, horsepower, or both. Pitfall number 5, electrical woes. After years of additions, removals, misguided MacGyverisms, and overall abuse, probably no system harbors greater potential for starting a fire on a used boat than the electrical system. Warning signs. Start with the batteries. They should be in liquid-tight, acid-proof containers or trays and secured against movement. Be on the lookout for equipment hot-wired directly to the battery, a potential for fire hazard, as well as crowded post syndrome. which is more than 4 wires connected to a single battery post. Check the overall condition of the wire runs. They should be neat and well organized and labeled. Problems include unsupported wires, dead ends, cut wiring no longer in use but left in place, corrosion and lack of chafe protection, especially where wires pass through a bulkhead. Keep an eye out for electrical tape joints and household type twist-on connectors. Two sure signs that Jethro's been doing a little weekend electrical work. Both are prohibited as they eventually fall off, leaving exposed, often energized conductors. Verify that AC wiring is marine grade stranded wire, vice residential style solid strand wire, also known as Romex, and that outlets located at the galley, head, and machinery spaces and on all weather decks are GFCI, ground fault circuit interrupt, protected. Fight or flight. If an electrical systems are maxed out or rife with problems, play it safe by getting an estimate to make it right from a competent marine electrician before negotiating with the owner on price. Pitfall number 6, manufacturer's defects. It's a sad fact that some problems you'll encounter are fresh from the builder or caused by improper aftermarket installations by dealers or brokers. Warning signs. The sky's the limit with the range and type of problems you'll encounter. Common issues include holes drilled or cut into core decks that aren't properly sealed against moisture entry. Windlass hawse holes are notorious for this. Inadequate backing plates for railings and cleats, unsupported wire runs, inaccessible fuel tanks, lack of seacocks on below the waterline through-hole fittings. The list seems endless. Using the wrong type of hose during an installation or failing to provide adequate chafe protection are also common issues. Fight or flight. Here's where a good marine surveyor is worth their weight in gold. It's the surveyor who, like crotchety old Aunt Emma did on your real first date way back when, picks and gnaws at your new love, ferreting out all those faults your own moonstruck eyes have failed to see. With survey report in hand, you can then work with the seller to correct these issues outright, negotiate a reduced price, or determine if it's better just to find a boat with less issues.